Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Wildy, Simmonds and Hill Publishing. Wildy's are particularly important publishers. They are the only legal bookshop now in London, but they also publish a lot of very important work for us as practitioners. And I think their work extends not just to those practicing, but also to unrepresented parties, of which there are so many today with the lack of legal funding available. The book that I'm looking at this morning is called Land Registration Manual, and it's now been written by David Rees for the third edition. Elizabeth and I talked about this review, and the title I've given the review is this: Land Registration Statutes, Practice and Procedure, Expanded and Updated. And basically it's been updated for 2018 onwards. Now let's have a look at the book first of all. It's a paperback, lovely front cover. I do like the cover. Fields. There's the front, there's the spine, and then there's the back. You probably can't read that much. I'll tell you a little bit about David Rees in a minute, but you can see the basic blurb there, some of which I've incorporated into the review. That's the index. It's by page numbering. There's not a great deal in the index, but there's enough to help you should you be looking for anything specific. See, the index starts there. Then you've got some appendices. There are 6 in total, which are right at the back. Then if we go to the front of the book, you can see the first page. Then you can see that's the main page there. Then we get into the detail about the book. And then do read the foreword by David Rees, which sets out, in fact, what he's been aiming to do with this particular work. We then got the contents section with a lot of detail all the way through, because what you've got with this is an A to Z system. So it starts with A and then runs all the way through to, actually there's nothing under Z. Writs and orders affecting land is basically the bottom. Unilateral notice and restriction then it is right at the end, and then you've got the appendices. You've then got a glossary of terms, extremely important in land law, as I'm sure anybody involved in it will know. There we go. These reviews I do are for people who are hoping to get some better information about what is happening. And of course land registration is a very important area today, and that starts off the first heading, access to neighbouring land orders, and then it runs all the way through A to Z. Leases there, and then right towards the end we get to things like rent charges. So that's the book itself. As I say, it's an important area, and I'm very grateful to Wildy's for producing this work. So what do we say about the book? Well, we say this: the publishers, Wildy, Simmonds and Hill, provide us as always with a very specific service with their formidable titles, which cover people both as practitioners and for unrepresented parties, as I've mentioned earlier, who are in search of an understanding of any particular area of law. And this is an important area, land registration. It's misunderstood. It's difficult actually to teach, but it is misunderstood by a lot of people as to what the work of the land registry actually is and where it fits in, because the systems we've got are still way behind proper modern computer systems. They're claiming to modernise and to change things within HM Court and Tribunal Service, and they have done to a certain extent, but you would have thought in the year 2018 we would be much more advanced with the actual data that is held about the registration of land. However, and we're getting near to 100 years since the 1925 legislation in 2025, so it'll be very interesting to see where we are in a couple of years' time. But let me go back to the book. Of course, as I've said, the book is very relevant because it's the registration of land that we're talking about, which is generally, as I say, misunderstood even by experts and the computer literate. Now, I say that on the basis of some of the cases I've had where it has become apparent very quickly that even the professionals have not quite as much a grasp of what is going on, and in fact what the original concepts were for land registration. And I do feel that we need quite urgently to review the way we actually hold the information and what we do with it, because there are so many neighbour disputes, far more than people readily admit to, and a lot of it is of course about land. Now, the author of this manual is David Rees. He's a solicitor and he's also the Assistant Land Registrar at the Land Registry, and he is probably one of the most important fountains of knowledge in this area. Whether he agrees with me, I don't know on what I've said, but I do believe that we're very thankful to him for his expertise. But I think, again, we've got to start looking for the middle of this century and beyond as to what we're going to do with these huge changes taking place with technology. Now, what Rees brings to the book is his substantial experience of probably over 30 years worth of work. And of course, he's very well known to many people for his work on conveyancing and in property law generally. And of course, the title is an authoritative source of both technical and practical advice on all matters relating to registered land and interests affecting it. And I therefore think it has a relatively wide audience appeal. And as I've said before when showing you the book, what Elizabeth and I found of great use was the book's alphabetical approach, that's the A to Z approach, which gave us the ability to focus on a specific topic which we may have been instructed on, knowing that the manual gives us the most useful background commentary. Also, of course, there's clear guidance on the form and content of relevant land registration or land registry rather, applications of interest, both of course to counsel and solicitors. So I do think it's a book that is always worth knowing about, because obviously it's in a new edition, but also that what is available within the book itself, which may help you with any particular problem you have. And as is invariably the case with Wildy titles, the topics included are, as the publishers say, quote, geared to aspects of day-to-day practice rather than academic areas of law. Thank you for that. Making the book more accessible and more relevant to the needs of busy practitioners. I'm very grateful, because when I first studied land law at the beginning of the 1970s, I found the materials available at that time to be very poor. They were extremely difficult to understand, and it was only Robert McGarry's book that helped me try to understand the law of real property as a general picture even then. And so I'm very grateful today to have so much more readily available information. The third edition has been fully updated to take account of all the changes in land registration law and practice, including those introduced by the Land Registration Amendment Rules 2018. And of course the manual also includes not only the usual subjects we're looking for, but also many less frequently asked or encountered topics which are often not covered elsewhere. Therefore, the coverage, fortunately for us, extends not only from transfers to leases, but from bare trusts to franchises, options to powers of attorney, and chancel repair to embankments and seawalls. So you've got everything in a nutshell, if I can put it that way, in the A to Z list. Now, the author ensures that each topic contains accurate commentary to aid understanding and provides clear guidance on the relevant applications which may need to be made to complete a transaction or protect a client's interests. So let me conclude by saying that the book also contains, you'll be pleased to hear, all the current versions of the standard form restrictions and prescribed lease clauses, along with a list of land registry forms and other useful information, making this manual what we think Wildy intends as the invaluable one-stop shop, basically, source of guidance for busy practitioners at all levels of experience. And that's exactly what it is. The book enables us to research topics and deal with matters quickly, efficiently, and effectively, which is always what you get with the Wildy title. And I, as I've said before, I'm very grateful that Wildy, Simmonds and Hill produced this work, because it is invaluable to us and does help immensely, I think, all levels of the legal profession with what we do. The book, of course, was published on the 25th of June 2018. Let's just have one last look at it. There it is, the front, the spine, and then the back. I'm just opening it in the middle. credit unions day list. There we go. You've got then electronic services. That in itself is an important one because of the changes made by the Land Registration Act 2002. So you've got quite a lot of information there. Embankments or seal river walls, you see, I mentioned those earlier. So you have a variety of interesting topics covered. Well, thank you very much to David Rees and to Wildy for producing this work. You do make our lives easier, and I'm very grateful to be able to review this work. And at least you know where the law can be found in certain areas. So thank you to all. Bye-bye.